Hello everybody, this is Texas Danny coming to you from Friday afternoon, Black Friday, November the 25th, 2022, and we have a lot of changes going on right now. I want to bring you guys up to date on a few things. Please excuse from the pizza parlor here in North Texas our eye in the sky, which is always looking down on us. Having a look. I have concerns, and all those concerns are the entire, literally mean the entire west coast of North America. The whole entire thing. Alaska, Canada, America, and Mexico, and the Gulf of California, which is still widening out. I'd like to show you just real briefly. These are quantum islands right here, folks. Right here. This is a quantum island here, and a quantum island here. I think one is like Island de la Guardia, Island de la Tiburon, Guardia Angel. But also quantum are Mexicali and Calexico. And this entire farming area has moved along with the Salton Sea down south. This bed, this irrigation, this farming belt used to go all the way where you see my finger, which is getting quite curved, by the way, with the changes that we have going on. I have big concerns for California, all the way around with California. It seems like and I'm using again the term quantum, signifies that it's outside of the Newtonian timescape, the changes that come in. It's like waves, quantum waves, which travel through the ether or through the cosmos, and then land in their present state. And we see that wave collapse. We see it pop. We see the results, or I do, at least I believe I do, at least on maps, Google Earth, modern media, various sources and stuff like that. And some critical comments have asked me if, hey, have you been to all these places? Of course not. When we had on my Earth, up where Greenland is right now, which is Greenland's about, at least 800 miles too far, farther north, maybe 1,000 miles north. The very top of it used to meet up and be totally enclosed by what we called Antarctica. This area, which comes all through this area, was called Antarctica. And it's gone now, and then you have the Arctic Sea or the Arctic Zone or whatever else like that. But Greenland is the news right now for losing ice, and it's losing ice quick. I'm seeing, when I look at the white, and sometimes I think it's digital or whatever it is, but I see these little spots open, close, open, close, open, close. And the activity in Greenland is just very incredible. So is northern Canada. The subterranean water is really moving all across North America, everywhere across North America. And we are going in every direction, but one thing to keep in mind, we're going down. We are losing scope. We are coming in to our rotation, where some redundancy there, some closing. The sphere is getting smaller, or whatever the curved space is, or whatever the demonstration is, it's getting smaller. We're losing the west coast of Mexico still quite a bit. And we have activity in the Sonora. We have activity around Chihuahua. We have activity that's 100 miles west of Monterey. That's kind of like the main wheel engine of the north of Mexico moving us in. We have Mexico swinging out east and also going further out into the Gulf of Mexico. We have shallows building up in and around Cuba and around the Bahamas. We have the west coast of Florida really getting chopped up now, and central Florida, all up and down the entire state. The state is smaller here in this reality compared to my old one, but it's really getting chock full of lakes. It was always a wet state, always a lot of little lakes, but it's especially so, especially since we had that activity. We had activity down out of Jacksonville, going down a big cruise, Orlando, and Lake Okeechobee was 4 times bigger, 4 or 5 times bigger maybe, and it was located right here in the south center of the state. But the far southwest part of the Florida Peninsula is gone. It's been chewed out, or the water's taken over it. I made a mistake years ago when I was thinking that the Keys were going to go. I thought they were going to be eliminated. Instead, they grew. Big Pine Key, Big Duck Key, all that kind of stuff like that, all came in there. But this has all been quite active. But our main track is the Gulf of Mexico. Our second track is the Honduras track, which runs south of Cuba, goes out to Jamaica, hits the Dominican Republic and Haiti, and then Puerto Rico. And the lead track goes out is the Barbados track, and this is basically leading the northern South American area, which is also closing. It's just slowly but surely always getting smaller in here, smaller and smaller. We'll also have some shallowing out in here, and it used to be for the Galapagos, because of the evolutionary history and Darwin and all that kind of thing like that from his works in 1859. In my timeline, we're much further out. They're much further in, closer to land now. I also want to swing around though, because I want to mention very important is New Zealand, because the Northern Island used to be a little further off to the northwest, and the peninsula that has Auckland on it and stuff like that, and Hawke Bay and stuff like that, these used to go up more or less straight up north and south here. And this distinct bay area is more carved out now, more rugged, more definitely. This has been a big move for Wellington, because it's moved past. It's about 50 miles now further out than where it used to be, and we still have a lot of problems or changes going on around Australia. I'm sorry here if I get this thing to move. This is getting a little slow. But we have activity in Indonesia. This is all broken up different compared to how this was always a broken up continent in my timeline, right? But it was millions of years further along one way or the other than it is now. This whole entire island right here, this island that you see here, used to be like this. And it's now like that. Thailand is Southeast Asia. This is the quantum in China. Hainan is a quantum island. Now I'm absolutely sure, because of the timeline and the way things work, that you're going to be able to have, you're saying, excuse me, when did this came into existence? Roughly late 2016, 2017, right? It's a quantum island, and it grew substantially, well over 100 miles in width. But I'm sure that it came into existence for me around 2017 to 2018, and I'm sure you're going to have some guys say, well, I was born there in 1952. What are you talking about? That's the way it works with the timeline differentials, the reality differences, and that kind of thing like that. But all our subterranean water is moving, so is our subaquatic movements are happening. I want to go back. It's important to mention this. Well, I'm having a little bit of a problem getting this to respond quickly, but Antarctica used to have this great spiral peninsula here, for me, was not off of South America. It was off of South Africa, about right here. There was about 800 miles to the south of no ice off the Cape of South Africa. This Cape, Cape Town and the Cape here, was very, very rough. It was very rough because it's all the cold water, everything else like that. They had an ice-free area for around 800 miles until you got about 1,000 miles south. Then Antarctica, which is much bigger than it is here today. And here the ice is coming out. The features are changing rapidly. You can see how the changes are coming out from the central island, going up into South Africa, going into what I call the Angola Tract, into the DNC, into East African Rift. The East African Rift, Tanzania, Uganda, Lake Victoria, Kenya, changing all of South Sudan. The Sudan now is getting green. Somalia. This is all breaking up now. In addition to that, you have from Nigeria down to Lagos in the Atlantic, going up into Chad, you have the Chad Rift headed towards Area 42, Suez Canal, and the Giza Plateau, which has been changing constantly and rapidly with the water changes and stuff like that. The Mediterranean is getting smaller. The Caspian is getting smaller. The Black Sea is getting smaller. Turkey is one of the busiest places on Earth with quantum changes to its terrain, especially out to its far east. Also happening to Iran, which is mixing it up right in there with Iran and Afghanistan. And these areas are all headed in to the plates, the movements into the Central Asia, as you've got that push coming up to Nepal, the Bhutan, the Tibet is pushing. This used to be, for me, the Mongolian desert, and it would have been about 1,200 miles northeast. Up here somewhere in the north of China. But you have Lake Baikal here, which is very active, going out to Siberia. Russia and China are both active right down the middle between the two, with splits. Changes coming to northern Russia everywhere, and we have the Nordics folding in now. We have the Baltic and the Nordics folding in. It is important, in my opinion, to mention this. It is important that Copenhagen stays open. I repeat, it is important, very important, Copenhagen stays open. We have changes to Sweden. We have political state line changes to Norway and Sweden. Finland has become smaller. We have, again, Greenland moving up. I'm sure some of this water is being worked both into the liquid water and to the atmosphere for the process to be going on. We have on the East Coast various changes of all types, some significant ones to the state of New York around the Finger Lakes. The Great Lakes itself have significant changes. We never had Michigan and Ontario meet. They met in the lakes, but they were not landlocked. There was no Sault Ste. Michigan, Sault Ste. Canada. They didn't exist. I mean, they may have, for all I know, but they didn't connect like they do here, right here. Now, I want to point out what I think is coming up. And this is important for you all to know. As we are primarily moving east, one thing to note is the Four Corners area of the United States. That's the states where the Four Corners are squared off, Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, and Colorado. There has been a deviation in the state lines at a local amusement area, historical marker there. There's some deviation off of that. and it is different. We have a lot of water still moving everywhere, and we have declination issues going on all the way up to the Denali Wave area, Alaska, all that moisture that goes into British Columbia, that's potentially going to work itself all the way through British Columbia, all the way through Alberta. Some significant quantum changes have happened in Alberta. Some gray box area changes have happened, what I call gray box areas. In our reality, we spell gray, G-R-E-Y. Here it's G-R-A-Y. They also say it's spelled both ways, though. But gray box areas came into the far eastern part of southeastern Alberta. A lot of quantum changes, especially the lower half of Alberta. Some significant changes. We have some concerns going on with Vancouver Island, British Columbia. This island was a much more fake-looking island in my timeline. It was much more smooth oval, and it would have been about 90 miles north and separated about another 15 miles off the coast, or 20 miles. There was the Puget Sound was bigger, and the whole Puget Sound area was bigger, and Vancouver, British Columbia, that sound was so big, and this part of the island was not there, that you had a south-west line to northeast line going right into Vancouver, open water. And again, you had up and down the west coast about 20 miles, so plenty of room for most traffic, maritime traffic, to go through that area. We have interesting things happening with Hawaii, with the Big Island there, and the entire island chains there. We have the Marianas Trench is pushing out. We have the Fibonacci Fiji mechanism working right now. We're going to have activity going all the way out here, all the way out to French Polynesia. Okay, and approaching South America as well. South America is probably going to have some changes coming up because it's just losing the south of the Amazon far too quickly. We've had changes where Lake Titicaca has been. The Andes here are much more shallow and lower. Since South America, for me, my timeline, where I was from, was hundreds and hundreds of miles further out west. So I think that through time, that moved those plates up, and the Andes were huge. Also, the Amazon basin was a big, huge enclosed basin, and you had very high hills, almost not quite ice mountains in the north of South America. There's changes coming to the northern parts of Brazil. The eastern side of Brazil is really opening out and becoming like a grass savanna, drier grassland very quickly. That's because the south flank of the Amazon is just going so quickly. But this is also affected by where Peru, this was all filled in coming out to the edge of the continent. It's been pushed in. The Amazon right now basically is a floating carpet of water, and the potential of what is in there is amazing. There's going to be some amazing things come to light there, and there's going to be some amazing things, I'm pretty sure, going to come to light out of Antarctica and Australia and New Zealand. But we have everything coming because it's going up through the East Rift, East African Rift. You've got, again, the Chad Rift. You've got the, let us call it a gravitational divergence at Riyadh, the capital of Saudi Arabia. You have the disturbances coming out of Syria and Basra. This is the land is really starting to drop here. It's also dropping very substantially on the southern Caspian. This Caspian used to, if you could look here, it used to be like a sea that was up and down here. This was here, but much smaller. And there was very little of this large green line that came into northern Iran. And this was more of a defined area through in here. It's shallowed out. But as we can see, for historical reasons and out of necessity, movements from the Caspian to Georgia to the Black Sea, and a place I am familiar with very definitely has changed, as is a different area altogether by hundreds. Well, not that Pacific place, which was Sinop, Turkey. Sinop, Turkey. Is around 75, 80 miles out of direct line, and probably more like 150 miles out of its place. Hi. Okay. I'd like to say goodbye from the Pizza Parlor. That's an update. Again, things to consider. We have too much quick changes to our European areas. We just have everything coming in too quick. We need to look at the Geneva Way very closely. The lake on Geneva has gone substantially further east. And we have the closing areas of Spain, the eastern part of Spain. We have Tunisia coming up fast on Sicily. And the Adriatic is of a great concern. Greece, northern Macedonia, Romania, the Romanian Wheel, the Carpathian Wheel, I like to call it, and all that. Okay, Texas Danny for out for right now. Thank you for the long listen. Bye.